And then Gemini, was going along. Gemini was clicking along, man. So we launched the 8th Gemini, which was supposed to go up and rendezvous with the 7th Gemini, which was a Agena, I think. The Agena was launched on an Atlas, and we were launching on a Titan II. So the Agena went up on the Atlas and was in orbit, and then they were going to launch Gemini 8 to go up there and rendezvous with it, which they did. Everything went fine. By the way, this was Armstrong was the pilot of Gemini 8, and he gets up in orbit and he docks with the Agena. And while they're docking, they get all docked up and linked up and everything. All of a sudden, the thing starts to rotate. They're not putting any hand controller signals in. The thing starts rotating, and it's going faster and faster. And pretty soon, Armstrong is saying, "Hey guys, I can stop this, but I'm using all the propellant up, just stopping it
with his
with his hand controller." He says, "I'm putting in right yaw, but it's still going left yaw on me. So, we got to jettison which you really hated to do, jettison the Agena, which was a big rocket they were kind of planning on. Jettison that. Well, that made it worse because then the mass was less. And it was one of the Gemini thrusters that was stuck.
Not the Agena thruster.
Not the Agena thruster. So they shut down all the power thrusters and they went to the re-entry thrusters. Well, you can't stay in orbit because you already activated the re-entry thrusters. So they had to abort the mission, and they aborted it over the Pacific Ocean somewhere. Now, I had just left McDonald to go to work for North American. Down the hall, same building, but down the hall, going to work for North American on the giant Apollo program, which was like, compared to Gemini, this was like moving from Podunk, Nebraska to New York. I mean, that's how big it was, And so I'm down there, second day there. John Tribe gives me this nice big book to read, and I'm reading up on whatever I'm supposed to get smart on, the mechanical thrusters and all that stuff. They called me and said, the Gemini just landed in the middle of the Pacific Ocean somewhere, and we want you to go get it. I said, wait a minute. I left you guys, but I was the only guy that had ever gone on recovery operations, just accidentally. That I was the guy that always went out and cleaned it and put Freon through it and sent it away. It had to be
nerded it and all that.
Yeah, nerded it, and I also was the pyro guy. So they said, well, we don't have anybody that has ever done it before. We can't send anybody out to the middle of the Pacific Ocean who's never done it. I said, but I don't work for you guys anymore. NASA calls up, send that guy to my boss at North American comes down and says, you got to go. So I went down and changed, packed a bag, went down to Patrick Air Force Base, got, of all things, we always went on a C-141 jet cargo plane. Didn't have any, so we went on a C-130 turboprop, very slow airplane. It took us 40 hours to get, because we'd go and then we'd stop overnight, and then we'd go to Alaska and we'd stop in Hawaii and Johnson Island, and I think that was finally where we went to Johnson Island. And the ship that the thing was on was a oiler, fuel ship that they put fuel on other ships from. That was the ship that picked it up because they happened to be there. So this Gemini comes back and they had piled up a bunch of mattresses under it to keep it from rocking around, I guess. And they hoisted it off and they dropped it down. I'm saying, me and I think there were about 6 techs and an electrical engineer and me. And they sent all this ground support equipment with us. Trailers and Freon and all this stuff to flush everything with, And so we flushed everything out and gushed it and got it clean, opened the doors, smelled really bad. People had been in it for a long time. And got it safe, closed it up, and we left and we flew back on a commercial jet. I ain't doing that C-130 again, ever. I don't know how fast the C-130 goes, maybe 250, 300 miles an hour or something like that. That's a long way to go. And they didn't want to, the pilot and co-pilot couldn't fly all the time. So they kept switching out pilots and staying overnight, and little by little we worked our way across America. And It was Gemini 8, and that was the last time I worked for McDonald.
The big thrusters are meant only for re-entry, but Armstrong has to engage them to wrestle Gemini 8 back from the brink.
Regaining control of the spacecraft slowly. Roger, copy.
The mission rules were that if you engage the re-entry system, that's the end of the mission.
They have to come home, making the U.S. space program's first emergency landing.
A lot of unexpected things happen, and usually they're not the ones you practice.